What's up, y'all? What's good? It's Marcus Frazier from Teachable Tuesdays, here to motivate you, encourage you, and inspire you to be a better you. Thank you for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. As always, if you could, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, make sure you stay up to date with all of my future Teachable Tuesdays content. I'd like to welcome you to the New Life Series, Episode 6. And I'm going to be real with you. This is going to be a very, very special episode for me. This episode has a lot of meaning because it stands for something that I am a strong advocate for. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health. More specifically, we're going to be talking about why mental health is important, my journey dealing with mental health, and why mental health just ultimately really does matter a lot more, especially nowadays that, mental health is not this negative stigma, or it's not so much of a negative stigma compared to what it used to be. Now, when you think about the word mental health, right, there's a couple of ways that you have to look at it, right? It's not this negative thing, like I said, negative stereotype that used to be, like when people used to mention mental health back in the day, people would automatically think, oh, somebody was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, if you get my drift, or something to that extent. But mental health has a lot to deal with the mental state and mental well-being of someone. It doesn't matter how many things you can do physically. If your mental is not intact, it will limit any physical or other aspects of your life, because your mental fortitude plays a huge factor in you being able to get daily tasks done, to be successful in life, and also really just doing the basic necessities. Obviously, getting up in the morning is one thing, but eating, going to work, your job performance, how you interact on a social level with other individuals, friends, associates, family members, significant others, so on and so forth, right? So mental health plays a huge part into that. And for me, I've always been tied into mental health ever since I was an early age. I was aware of what mental health was. I knew how mental health affected me. Growing up, I guess the first place I could start at with this, where I had any knowledge of mental health, was I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 5 years old. And initially, they had me on medication, right? And, it seemed like it was working, but it had some pretty negative side effects. And my mom quickly took me off the medication. And I'm laughing when I say this because she made a statement where she was like, he don't need no medication. He just need to know how to act. and I laugh, but on a serious note, that's not necessarily always the case. Luckily for me, I had a lower level of ADHD to where I was able to control it on my own with the help of therapy later on in life as well. But typically when you have different mental health challenges, oftentimes, and when I say these things, let me just make something perfectly clear. I am not a mental health specialist, okay? I am not a mental health guru. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I'm just speaking on my own experiences. So, sorry, I meant to say that in the beginning of the video. I just want to make that clear now before we continue. But anyways, typically when you have some people that have mental health challenges, ADHD, depression, bipolar disorder, you name it, right? It's often caused by a chemical imbalance. And that chemical imbalance typically requires one or two things, or a combination of those two things. Well, one or a combination of two things. It could be medication, therapy, or both, right? So for me, what always helped me out with different aspects of mental health was therapy. I've been seeing a therapist literally since I was 9 years old. And currently, as the recording of this video, I'm 34. So I've seen therapists all my life, from elementary school until, now. And I'm going to say some things, just a trigger warning. I want to let you guys know just in case. If you want to skip forward a little bit, that's perfectly fine. But At 9 years old, I had thoughts of, you know, eliminating myself. Not gonna say the actual work because of YouTube guidelines and so on and so forth, but you can kind of get the drift of what I mean by that. I don't know exactly where those thoughts came from, but they were there. I was getting bullied in school a lot. I was going through a transitional period where my mom had gotten married and I wasn't too excited about the marriage. And it wasn't because of the man that she was married. You know, my stepdad, he's an amazing individual. I think it was just as a kid, I wanted my parents to get back together because they were together at one point and so on and so forth. It was a lot that I was dealing with as a child, right? A lot of things, especially the school aspect. I wasn't doing good in school. There was a lot of different things occurring, and that brought my mental health down a lot. And my parents, they just couldn't figure out what in the world was going on. Shoot, I couldn't even figure out what was going on. I was too young to even self-identify certain things like I can now. You know what I mean? But I ended up getting help in that, and I remember I ended up being hospitalized as a result of you know, me saying certain things and so on and so forth, because they wanted to run some tests to see what was going on with me, and they figured out that I needed to see a therapist, right? So that took place, and I ended up, you know, not just seeing a therapist, but seeing my school psychologist as well to help me out with some of my challenges. I had severe anger issues when I was in elementary school. I would say the latter part of elementary school and early middle school. And some of those anger issues actually carried on to high school. Now, it wasn't anger issues to the point where I was like, you know, fighting people and destroying property and things like that. But it was enough to warrant a concern to the point where, hey, Marcus needs to go see a specialist, right? So, fast forward to middle school, I ended up seeing a new therapist, and my brother, he ended up seeing a therapist as well because my little brother had his own share of challenges too. And we both saw the same therapist. Their names were Miss Barbara and Mr. Julius. I'll never forget about them. If you guys happen to watch this video just by some chance, shout out to y'all. They were very, very important foundations. The therapist I had in elementary school, she's all right. But I think the therapist I had in middle school, both of them had a huge impact. Actually, for me, it was middle school and it carried on early on to high school because, number one, these therapists, they were black. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, Marcus, what does that have to do with anything? There's just a certain relation when you have a therapist that is of the same ethnicity as you, same culture, same understanding. It's just certain things just kind of flow into place. And that's not to say that you can't have a therapist of any ethnicity, because I believe therapists of all ethnicities, which I've had myself, are excellent. But it was just a type of relation, if you will. You know, me being black and me having a black therapist, it made a difference and still does to this day. So they played a very important foundation of me finding coping mechanisms to deal with my anger, finding coping mechanisms to deal with mental health challenges that I had. You know, granted, middle school and high school wasn't as bad in terms of me ever wanting to cause harm to myself or anything of the sort, but I still had, you know, challenges that I had to deal with, and they were a big component in that. And then I remember in high school, I ended up seeing another therapist by the name of Dr. Miles. Really cool guy, really laid back. Took me out different places where we had fun, like went out to different restaurants, went to mall and stuff and hung out, and, you know, just tried to get me out of that environment of being in the four walls of an office, which I thought was really, really cool, if I'm being honest with you, because it helped me kind of be more open to talk about things, because it was more of a relaxed environment, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And I can say to this day, he's one of the best therapists that I've ever had. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, continue on to college. I didn't have a therapist initially, but I had a situation where, once again, I had those negative thoughts in my head. And the same thing that happened to me in elementary school when I was saying about what I would do, it almost came true. And I'll tell you a quick story. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. But was dealing with a lot. Once again, it was my last year of undergrad, and just so much pressure, so many issues that I was dealing with that I'll discuss in a whole nother video, because that's within a separate video of itself. But I remember texting my line brother, shout out to Sam, and I'm not gonna tell you exactly what the text message said because I don't want to trigger anybody. But long story short, I was done with life. I was completely fed up. And right when I was about to leave campus to do the deed, if you will, I remember campus security pulling up. And they had identified who I was, and they took me to the counselor at the time. And she told me, she went by Dr. Niles at the time. She's been remarried, just to let you know. That's why her last name changed. And she told me, look, either you can voluntarily, go in this Baker Act, or not Baker Act. You can voluntarily go in, to seek some help, or you can be Baker Act. If you don't know what the difference is, if you're voluntary, depending on the situation, they might keep you for a minimum 24 hours. If you actually get Baker Acted, in most cases, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe they have to keep you for a minimum of 72 hours. I could be wrong. I believe that's the actual time frame. Again, comment below. Let me know what it is. I will actually look it up after this video, and if I'm wrong, I will fact check myself for the next video. But I remember being in there, and some of the things I saw, some of the things I heard. I ain't gonna describe everything, but if you've ever been Baker Acted, or if you ever voluntarily turned yourself in to get some help, you gonna hear and see some things, you know what I'm saying? And it made me realize in that moment, what I'm going through can't be that bad compared to what some people have gone through. My Lord, I was only in that thing for 24 hours, and it was enough for me to realize I am not that bad off, okay? I'm not. I'm laughing, but it wasn't nothing funny about it at the time. Oh my goodness. So the agreement when I left was, hey, we're going to let you go, but for the remainder of the time that you are in school, you are to see your school therapist once a week. No ifs, ands, or buts. Whatever time you set up with her, that's the time you get, and you make it work. And that's what I did. And mind you, I was already seeing her before this took place. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I got to try to, you know what I'm saying? It was just there. So that was that. Then for years, I didn't have a therapist. Until I decided to get one when I was at work, because it was another situation where it wasn't nowhere near as bad as what happened when I was at Cookman, but I did feel depressed. And, I remember talking to my principal about it at the time, and I was very straightforward with him. And I told him, I said, hey, I really want to get some help. I just feel like I've been off lately, and he found some resources for me. I ended up seeing a therapist for about a year. And then I started going to UCF and started seeing another therapist, right? And then so on and so forth. So just to make a long story short, I will say that, again, I've been seeing a therapist all my life, and therapy has really helped me out a lot. It's gave me different coping mechanisms when I do have those downs in life. I've never been one to have to take medication for my mental health, but therapy has definitely helped keep me balanced. Even now, like I said, I'm still seeing a therapist, excuse me. I wish I could see a therapist more, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think I see a therapist once a month. Wish I could make it twice a month. It's just kind of tough, mainly because of the schedule that they have set up at the office and also my school schedule. Because it used to be with the guy that I'm seeing, his office hours were up until 4 in the afternoon, which worked out because I teach at the high school. I was able to get out at, 2:30 and just zoom my way across town. Can't really do that because now his office closes at like 2 o'clock. So it's a little tougher, if you will. So I have to like strategically plan out. Like during the summertime works out for me because my summer hours are a lot different. I do work during the summer, but I have specific days off, so that kind of works out. But nonetheless, I say all that to say this. Therapy is very important, y'all. There's nothing wrong with getting therapy. There's nothing wrong with getting help. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that you do have challenges, right? Like I said, you might be somebody like me who deals with mild depression from time to time, and you just need a bit of therapy to kind of balance things out. You might be someone who is more on the extreme side of depression. You might be someone who has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. You may be someone who's had thoughts like myself of ending it all, right? Or causing, God forbid, causing violence to someone else. Regardless of what category you fit in, it's never too late to get help. And if you are that individual, look at resources, right? I'll leave a link below of some resources that you can get from therapy. These are very general resources. Also some resources if you know somebody who may be, feeling like they want to off themselves, right? Or feeling some strong type of way. People who've gone through different things, because sometimes mental health challenges can be caused by certain events in life. They don't just come out of nowhere. A lot of people, they think, oh, well, just mental health is just kind of something that just comes up. No, not at all. You've ever heard of PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder? That takes place from certain events happening in one's life. You know what I'm saying? That ain't something that just comes out of nowhere. That is something that is triggered by an event that happened. So I do want to let people know that when it comes to mental health, a lot of times the stigma is people think that it just pops out randomly. No, that junk do not pop out randomly. There was something other than the fact that it could be a chemical imbalance, because that's the thing too, like I mentioned earlier, that is causing that to take place. So do keep that in mind. You know what I'm saying? Do most certainly keep that in mind. And bottom line, make sure you reach out and talk to somebody. I said this in the last video when I was talking about the emotional regulation, and this kind of ties into it, because your emotions do very well tie into your mental, and your mental, vice versa, ties into your emotions. I will always be a strong advocate for therapy because I believe that everybody needs professional help in some form or fashion. And, you might have family and friends and a significant other to talk to and so on and so forth. But here's the truth. There are certain things that professionals can help you out with more than people that are more on a personal level with you, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. It's just being able to acknowledge the fact that, hey, maybe I do need some extra help. Hey, I appreciate talking with my homeboy, my homegirl, but I might need some professional therapy. I might need some coping mechanisms. And that's not to say that your friends and family can't give you coping mechanisms, but at the end of the day, unless they're therapists themselves, they might not be able to give you all the tools that you need. So just bear that witness. Anyways, I hope this video helps. Again, mental health is very important to recognize. Therapy is extremely important. And remember, everybody's different. Like I said in the beginning, some people need therapy, some people need medication, some people need both. Whatever it is for your case, just make sure that you're doing ultimately what works for you. Because everybody's different. And then remember, at the end of the day, it's okay if you need a little bit of extra help. Nothing wrong with that. We all do. It's Marcus Frazier from Teachable Tuesdays here to motivate you, encourage you, and inspire you to be a better you. Much love, you guys. Hope you have a great day. Please, 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 I don't ask this that often, but definitely share this video. It's very much needed. All right? Peace.